Hi, and welcome to another episode of the South Texas Power Lunch. I'm Matt Duke, managing attorney with the South Texas Business Lawyers. I have our great friend and prior guest, Christina Olivarez, with us.
Hello.
Thanks so much for coming by.
You're welcome.
When it comes to social media, which we do a lot of social media out there, I just feel like I'm in the dark ages, and we're going to learn all of the new and greatest things that are going on. We're going to talk about Hustle and Socialize, which is coming up here pretty quick. We're proud to be a sponsor of all the things that you're doing. But just thanks so much for coming back.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I always enjoy our conversations. I'm so excited to be here.
So my first question, what the hell's going on with social media? It's like it changes left and right.
Well,
we have a post one day that gets us like 500, 600 people. The next day we get 10.
Yeah.
I can't understand this stuff.
The biggest thing that we need to talk about is TikTok. And
that's what it was too.
What is going to be happening with a potential ban that is coming? It's a race against the clock for TikTok.
Right.
So right now they passed the bill to go ahead and find a potential buyer, a potential, for ByteDance. And I believe they have up to 9 months to a year to sell and to find someone new to buy.
Wow.
Which is whatever you look at it, right? We won't get into the actual specifics, but from a creator standpoint, from a business standpoint, I want to talk the facts about the amount of economic pressure that's going to be on a lot of people who rely on TikTok for the means of their business.
Right.
Whether it is TikTok Shop, where you could, put your products on that shop, and it's sort of like that Etsy, QVC type deal, or just creators who work with brands and have all of their income coming in from that. Obviously, there's other platforms that they could go ahead and maneuver to, but TikTok, especially in the creator economy, it's like $1 billion industry.
Right.
And so, and not only that, right, we're going through just that, but now I saw early this morning that Universal Music Group actually came to a deal with TikTok because there was a copyright issue when it came to music that was on TikTok. So Universal Music Group, which has artists like Taylor Swift, Bad Bunny, so many popular artists, they took off their music in January because it was a violation of copyright issue for people who were utilizing those songs. And so for a while, popular music was taken out. You might see, if you're on TikTok, it has some of the audio removed, right?
Yeah.
And I think there's just so much to talk about too when it comes to AI, when it comes to, how things are being manipulated in the music industry. I know prior to this, there was a song that was manipulated by AI from, Michael Jackson. And artists who have passed on, right? And so there's so much just going on just within that one platform.
Yeah.
So I just feel like you have to have a pulse on what is happening, especially if you're using it for your business, but also the legalities around that as well, because there's just so much at play.
Well, and there's a lot of misinformation that's out there. And I'm not talking politics, I'm not talking news, but there's so many creators that are looking for something to make it go viral that they will just blatantly lie about the product. Right. I've seen some things that just blow my mind with like a torch gun that literally was like a flamethrower. And I'm
my gosh.
And then, you go and read the reviews and they're like, man, a lighter does something bigger than this does, right? But they did this flamethrower as a viral thing of look what you can get. And then when you get it, that's not it.
Right.
Because, it's very different. That can become an issue for somebody in a big way. And it's so easy to do it now using AI to create looks like something that's real. Who knows? That flamethrower could have been AI created.
Exactly.
That, to try to sell them with the bait and switch that went in place.
Well, and I see that actually happen to me on LinkedIn. There was a couple of months ago where someone sent me a DM on LinkedIn, was asking about my programs, my coaching programs, started a full-blown conversation with this person, only to realize midway through that conversation that it was a bot, because it started to spit out AI terms. It's really easy to sort of spot that. And so this whole entire time I kept saying like, wow, I really fell for this. And so we just have to really be careful in what's real and what's not.
So I got a funny story on that one too. And my client that's going to hear this, sorry, I'm not saying who you are. I actually engaged with their social media and their bot and thought it was them.
Oh my gosh.
Because I got a response. I'm like, oh, okay. And so I keep going. I'm like, wait a minute. This is not who I think it is.
Exactly.
And it wasn't. It was,
exactly.
and it was a bot that I was dealing with. I mean, it was like only 3 messages, but the first 2, I was like, oh, okay. And then you go. And the sophistication of those bots and those interactions are just unreal. Let me ask you a question that I just want to make sure we get, because we're going to talk about a ton of stuff.
Yeah.
So this last week, I went to my kids' school, which was fantastic. Entrepreneurship class.
Okay.
All right.
I love it already.
You're going to love this. I was thinking about you when I was sitting there. I was like, well, I got to talk to Christina about this. They're giving me pitches. I got to be one of the sharks that was there, which is so much fun. I do that, with people here at Geekdom. Velocity, Texas, but these are high school, junior, seniors, giving a pitch about coming. There was some that I was like, wow, that's a really good idea. There was some I was like, okay, yep, I remember you from high school, just, out there, just anyway. Every single one of the kids, every single one, I saw 6 of them, when they had their marketing budget, how much do you think they put for marketing and advertising?
I'm going to say 50,000.
$200.
Oh.
And when I asked them, because I was a shark, every single one of them, because I was just so curious, you know what their response was? It's social media. I know how to use social media. We'll get it to go viral and it'll get it there. And I told my son afterwards, because we were talking about it. And I was like, I spend thousands of dollars. Thousands of dollars. I do the organic stuff. We spend thousands of dollars on marketing opportunities to do that. And he goes, really?
Oh my goodness.
Which for him, he doesn't, his dad's a lawyer, so he gets that. But for all of these kids, again, what does it need to take? There's that misnomer because they see the successful viral ones. They just figure they'll go viral. And it's maybe easier to get a lot of likes and reviews in high school, right? With that, community versus what it really is in real life when you're trying to find strangers to come and be with your business.
Well, and it's so different too on the strategic side because when you are actually mapping out what a social media strategy looks like on top of adding in paid social, and then even different marketing opportunities like visibility opportunities, podcasts, speaking on stages, radio, television, it is a whole beast. And so I worry a little bit because we tend to think about social media as just this thing of like, well, anybody could do it. Yeah. And I've seen it even when I used to manage social media back in the day before I transitioned into coaching. I would be in rooms with, executive directors that of course had years of experience, but not so much knowledge in social media. Right. And that was always the term, oh, well, we could do it, we could take it. And then when push comes to shove, we see that they are struggling. They're struggling from a crisis communication level. Yep. They're struggling from even just a customer service level. And so I really hope that while yes, these kids are getting incredible knowledge in how to edit and create direct. I mean, we're mini directors, right? When we're crafting a video, we are literally setting up the shot. However, there's so much more that goes into it, especially from I'm just always thinking about from a crisis communication standpoint, right? When something hits the fan and we have to use social media to communicate to our audience about what is actually happening, or from a customer service space, right? Sure. And so I just really want these kids who are on these platforms to not get fazed by the vanity part of it, which is going viral, because someone can go viral but not have the systems in place to get them to a place where if there is an influx of customers, do they have what they need to have on the backside to be able to handle that virality?
Well, and what's interesting too, and I've had this conversation with a lot of other, service providers in various industries. Mm-hmm. We've done posts that have gotten, tens of thousands of views and everything else. Yeah. And we didn't, to my knowledge, we didn't get any clients out of it.
Right.
Right. But, so people say, well, why do you do these things? And I'm like, well, if you go back to marketing 101, big bucket is awareness.
Exactly.
If they don't know you exist, you got no shot whatsoever.
Exactly.
I mean, I always tell people, you can have a great URL. It's really clever that sells the cure to cancer. If you didn't tell anybody about it, they wouldn't know.
Exactly.
Right. But people believe, I mean, from a lawyer standpoint, plaintiff's attorneys on car wrecks, they get it, right? Everybody knows Thomas J. Henry.
Yep.
Everybody knows
444.
Sorry. And I've also got some very, very good friends that you will see out there that are doing this as well, right? They're on buses, they're on billboards, and they're not those guys, and they're much better at what they do, just so you know. But they know they have to do that awareness to it, and they spend a lot to do it. But even for, a small creator, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, you spend a lot of money just getting out there and go. I mean, we do reports every single month, and our direct paid advertising, we usually get a little bit better because it's targeted out there, but we still have to do the general bucket. It gets frustrating sometimes.
Exactly. And I feel too that from the awareness standpoint, like that's where your audience gets to build the know, like, trust. And so they are regularly seeing your content. So you're staying top of mind. So when they're like, hey, I actually, I need an attorney at this point, or, I have this issue within my business, and who am I going to have? Right. And immediately, where's the first place we go to? Social media.
That's
right. I normally don't go to someone's website until I first go to their LinkedIn or their Instagram.
Right.
And so even though it does take time and you might spend, a lot of money on it, it's still so important to have, because if no one knows who you are, they're not going to want to hire you, or they're just not going to build that rapport with you through your videos. I've had so many clients and so many people come up to me at speaking engagements, and they're like, I love your content. So they already sort of get to know who I am because of the videos that I'm producing.
That's right. And yours are, because I watch a lot of those, they're like mine as well. We're educating people, right? Because if they become educated, then they're going to make better decisions.
Right.
And then that will help when we build a relationship and one day, work together, just like for you on there. And I have tons of people that do come up and like, man, I'm learning a lot, right? But, again, it's a long funnel, for those type of things. And too many people just think go viral.
They do.
Let me ask you, what's the secret sauce to go viral?
Oh my gosh. There is no secret sauce.
I got to get my notepad. Come on, give me what I ask. I want to go viral once in my life.
It really is. Yeah, exactly. I really do believe like it's just a combination too of just luck and preparedness and timing. I mean, I always tell my clients, like, we're not going in with the expectation of, hey, the algorithm is going to pick it up.
Yeah.
But there are signals that the algorithms will say, like, hey, we're going to show this post more. Or if something has a lot of traction, then it will open up and, show it to more people. But I do feel like when we think about people who've actually gone viral, where are they now? Like I always, what comes to mind, and this is so old school Facebook, but when Facebook Live launched, there was, I don't know if you remember, this was in 2016, Chewbacca, the Chewbacca mom, right?
Laughing and everything with the laugh.
But she went viral. She wasn't a business. But she went viral. She had her 15 minutes of fame, right?
Yeah.
And then we never heard from her around, after that. And so I just feel like I always like to say social media, there's no one size fits all.
Yeah.
You will have some posts that do really well. You will have some posts that don't do really well.
Yeah.
And sometimes if you look at your stories and if you look at like how many people are viewing, sometimes it will go up and down.
Oh yeah.
And so it's really important to not get discouraged, because it's a marathon. It's not like, hey, it's not
a marathon. I've run almost 40 of those. It's a ultra marathon times 2.
Exactly. But the way I see it is, I always write down what are my actual goals for the quarter? Where am I being visible? So is it much more important for me to be visible on stage or at networking events? And how does my social media play with that? How does it align? So if I'm going to a networking event, are my social media profiles already in tip-top shape to where if somebody were to follow me right from that networking event, can they go on to my profile and get a gist of who I am and who I serve, right? So that's kind of like what I feel is really more important than just going viral, because again, you can have like amazing videos, and if you don't have those systems in place that could help, whether it is from a paid perspective or a system perspective, it's not going to be helpful for your business, because then you have to keep catching up. And there's also too, like, we have to remember at the end of the day, as small business owners, we're creating content, but we're not full-time creators. That is a separate job. So like a full-time creator is somebody who is actually creating content for other brands. They're those influencers, right? Like they're getting paid by the brands to market and promote their stuff. As small business owners, we're creating content with that whole expectation around shifting people's perspectives to buy from us.
So that's an interesting, again, we talked about influencers last time you were here, but it seems to me, again, in dealing with a lot of small, medium-sized business, really in the service business, right? Which that's a big chunk of people that are entrepreneurs, and in the creator business, you know, whether they're, consumer goods, those type of things. It almost seems like if you don't have a social media plan, you cannot be successful and sustainable.
100%.
Which lends itself, I mean, we do. I mean, I have a great team, Tejas and Gabe, they literally do this every day. They're doing things, setting things up, taking this and bite-sizing it. But is that like now the must-have?
100%. Actually, in my TEDx talk that I gave almost 4 years ago, which is wild to think because so much has happened. But in that talk, I talked about how social media, what the pandemic showed us is that, especially from a business perspective, is that social media is no longer optional. It is a necessity.
Right.
So when we think about how quick people, and we're thinking about different generations, right? There's like 4 or 5 different generations that are on social media right now.
Right.
And even though there's a lot of generations on it, we all know that everyone is finding out information through Facebook, through LinkedIn, through, we're using TikTok and Instagram as Google versus, right? When we think about where are we going to go eat, right? If someone's traveling to San Antonio for the very first time and they want to know what the city has, they're going to go to TikTok and search, great coffee shops to have coffee in San Antonio. And so that's why you cannot not have a social media plan. Even you can't, you have to be on it. And I actually had a conversation with a couple of my bankers, and one of them was like, "Oh, I'm not even on LinkedIn." And I was like, "What?" Like
LinkedIn, you know what? Okay, so LinkedIn is an interesting beast because, from an organic standpoint, I mean, we do pretty well on that.
Yeah.
The business page, again, continues to grow and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But the paid aspect of LinkedIn is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, just super expensive that's out there. So
compared to Meta,
Meta, for those sort of tools. I mean, even compared to Google Ads, it's just ridiculous that's out there. And they just have that really, really good niche for business providers. But I get probably 8 or 9 views a day, of people looking at, those sort of things. It's almost like a must have, for it, but it's just so crazy expensive.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel too, when we think about where social media is going and what is coming up.
Where is it going?
Right? Where is it going? When we think about it, it's like who gets left behind, that is going to be really just detrimental to their businesses, because now everything is online. The way we consume everything, and not only that, but the way we take payments, right? Like we are living in a very digital first world. And so even if your business just has one social media platform, you don't need to be on all of them, but at least one is going to be the key to their success.
Well, what's crazy to me from a business using social media is I can tell. So one, I have a confession to make.
Okay.
I know how to game the algorithm of what I view.
Yeah.
So that way I only get what I want.
Exactly.
So if I go grab my Insta right now, I can guarantee you're going to get two things. Alabama football.
There you go.
And probably soccer stuff that they're watching, highlights and that sort of things.
Yeah.
And cute dogs.
Oh.
I don't know why. I just got to, everybody's got to look at the golden retriever
cats.
and everything else, right? That's what's in my Insta. There ain't nothing else.
No.
That comes in there.
Yeah.
But what's crazy to me is every now and then, like Free Fly, which is some apparel company, fishing, bamboo stuff that I love. I'll remember the first time I just like, oh, that's interesting. Click. And it showed up on all my, it started showing up everywhere.
Yep.
And there's a sophistication level to using cookies, right? That it seems like even these, I would say, medium-sized companies that are trying to grow, they know how to do that.
Yeah.
How do you figure that out?
So Instagram is very transparent on how they rank the post. And I'll use Instagram first because they have 5 different algorithms. Wow. They have one for the regular feed, like your feed that you use. They have another one for stories. They have another one for reels. They have another one for the explore tab. And then they have another one for the DMs.
And y'all thought lawyers made things complicated, really?
And so they base it on different touch points, if you will. So one is definitely like, who are you interacting with and what interests are you more interested in? So if you, for example, Alabama football, cute dogs, if you see somebody post something and you start, interacting with it, it will signal to the algorithm, oh, let's show more of this, right? And then even too with who you interact. So if we're in a DM conversation or if we are constantly replying to each other on Instagram stories, my stories are going to show up first, like in that very first viewpoint of when you open your app. And that's why it's really, a lot of people are like, well, I need to post at this specific time. It doesn't matter anymore what time you're posting.
Oh, interesting.
Because of the fact that the algorithms are looking at other deciding factors than just the times that you're on, because everyone is
Which makes sense, because sometimes, again, so college football, they're talking about recruiting stuff. I'll look at stuff and go, wait a minute, this happened like 5 days ago. And I'm just not seeing it now, right?
Yeah.
Funny note about like, if you look at something, so there's a football thing, sorry, but I'll never forget recently, I saw a post and it knows how long you spend time looking at it when you scroll. Because I'll never forget, I looked at what is called the, horrible University of Tennessee. Sorry, all you Vol fans. I was looking at something, I didn't realize, like, wait a minute, this is Tennessee. And I swiped down. Then I started getting some Tennessee stuff. So I was like, I am not, no, get away. And now it's gone. But it knew how long I was looking at it. Kind of creepy.
Yeah.
But it comes back to that whole of, you have to be using social media. You have to know how the algorithms generally work, right? And you have to be engaging enough that at least they're going to sit there for a few seconds and look, so that way it'll keep bringing you back.
Exactly.
The algorithm.
Exactly.
And as a small business owner, that's why I have gray hair.
And they want you, obviously, they make money off of how much time we spend, right? So even as a business owner, you can even see in your analytics what types of content are really performing best, but also what are the most engaging posts. So you get an idea of, hey, this post, whether it was a reel, a video, or a static image like a carousel, you can understand your audience's habits. So are they engaging more with a reel, or are they more engaging with a post that you put? And like, what was the type of content that you were producing? And then that will let you know, like, hey, my audience really prefers this type of content, so we're going to keep doing that content because they like it, right? And it's really interesting to see, like, obviously analytics change week by week or even month by month, but looking at your analytics and making really great decisions from that is also in alignment to how much revenue you want to make and what offers are you going to have, what seasons that you primarily do your most marketing, right? Or where you kind of back off. And that's how you can really develop a strategy behind it.
So I think we talked about this last time, but I don't know. So I'm just going to ask the question. It seems like for each of the platforms, there's a different strategy based upon the type of user.
Yes.
That's what it feels like.
Yes.
Tell me
Yes.
What's your opinion of that?
100%. I would not talk to my audience from TikTok as I would to an audience of LinkedIn. Because it's very different, right? Even the cultures are different. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't maybe post like a specific video, right? Just the messaging is different and the way that you communicate to that audience. And so I do feel like each one of them, especially for me a little bit, like I'm very curated when it comes to the different platforms that I'm on. So some of the platforms are truly just like business, right? Like very focused on the business aspect. And then some other ones, I'm a little bit more lenient on how much personal stuff I give, right? But each platform does have a different culture and a different way about it. And I think that that's why some people feel like it's just so much, because you have to really study. If you're on TikTok, you have to study like that specific platform's culture. And then if you're on Instagram, you really have to understand how each surface, because there's 5 different surfaces, right? You're creating content, whether it's on stories or reels, like you're just creating content at all times. It's very different.
Oh, good. That's what it felt like. So I'm glad that's the honesty of what it is.
Yeah. And so it is different, but that doesn't mean that, you know, I post a lot of the same videos on every platform because I know there's so many different people who they might see my content on LinkedIn. They might not see it on Instagram, right? So I'll post the same video, but the messaging will be a little bit different, or I'll have a different tone or a different voice. Like I'm big on emojis and I'm big on, you know, exclamation points. Sometimes I might not be like that on LinkedIn, right? So it's just a different way that you go about it.
This just popped into mind because the emojis. I'm not an emoji user. However, sometimes you can use ChatGPT to do the emoji thing.
Yes.
Does social media know if we use ChatGPT?
Yes.
Man.
So this is what.
See, we try to find a way to cheat and get a little ahead, and the computers figure out the computers.
I think it's very obvious when somebody is using ChatGPT.
Very obvious when I'm using it with all of a sudden all the emojis.
Exactly. Or the adjectives that it uses, right? Like I remember, I mean, I use ChatGPT for scripts for my sales pages on my website, right? For presentations for speaking.
Yeah.
And sometimes like I had to ask it, can you rewrite this in a non-robotic way? Because it was really, really obvious. So I do feel, and that to me is just a very interesting way of like, even from the legal standpoint, because we're seeing now colleges that are putting essays and putting different things from ChatGPT to make sure that it's not plagiarized, or you know, if they're using ChatGPT.
Well, now in the Bexar County, when you do anything that has a legal analysis as a part of it, you must certify that it's been checked by an attorney to some extent. I think that's what it says.
Oh my gosh.
I haven't do that yet. But it's already into the courtroom. Which, by the way, and I say this all the time, ChatGPT will tell you the wrong law. It'll grab other jurisdictions and tell you it's Texas law.
Oh my gosh.
All the time.
I believe
and it
that.
says it very confidently, so you go, oh, that's not what it is. So, you know, people are like, oh, it could pass the bar exam. Well, there's also really bad lawyers. So do you want one of the really bad ones at ChatGPT?
Yeah. And that's why I feel too, like with any social media, whether it's a chatbot or content writing or sales pages, it's good to use it to help, right? I use it as a starting point. So we don't got time. We got to use a starting point, but always edit and use it to what you would write, because if you go onto somebody's website and you can see there's so many adjectives or emojis, you're like, yeah, that's ChatGPT.
Yeah, I mean, I use it from a marketing standpoint to actually make I talk very technical.
Yeah.
I can use it to say, you know, how would you change this to speak to an 8th grader?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you know, moves it down to where you can better communicate.
Right.
And it's been good to be able to help with that on it, as opposed to ask it a question. Yeah. Translation or, you know, doing some of those things, you know, helping out. I get it. But yeah, you got to be careful.
And it's great for the content process. Like I have all these ideas, help me lay out, you know, these ideas in a great format. It's great to start, but if you're really relying on it, like please don't. Please don't really rely on it. Get it checked.
Who knows? Somebody, you know, could create an AI thing that does all your marketing for you, and then they'll figure out that AI is doing that, and then I mean, it's just, I saw today that they expect Apple shares to go down because there's not AI on Apple. Google has
Google
AI
has the AI.
now, but because Apple does not, and I just looked at my phone and I said, please don't.
Well, and Meta.
But the reality is it is.
Meta just added AI. Yeah.
AI, which is on there, which, which will be interesting because, Google's got it. So now if you go into the search bar and type something that looks like it's a question, it'll give you an answer.
Yes, I saw it. It's like in purple or green
now.
Yeah,
so it'll generate the answer. Well, the problem can become, just like I just talked about a second ago, is it will grab different pieces if it has any legal nature and potentially give you another jurisdiction's answer and tell you it's Texas. Gosh. But imagine that for a creator or somebody else if your product now has an AI. What was it? I want to say I did that recently, and it told me about what people think about the product at the very top.
Oh my gosh.
I'm trying to think what product that was.
Wow.
I was looking for that. And it was like, clients tend to like this sort of thing, but talk about some of the packaging issues was a part of it. And I thought,
dang,
how do, at the end of the day, a computer is going to tell people your first impression potentially than even you get to do.
Wow.
Christina, you got to solve this problem.
That's wild,
what are you doing about it, Christina? Tell me what you're doing about it, for all of this. I mean, at some point in time, do we just go back to, you know what, I'm just going to go back and watch, TV that comes over the air and I'll just deal with that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just
well, and that's honestly like whatever happens with TikTok, is going to happen. But I fully believe that we're seeing just a rise also in potentially TikTok becoming really streaming ways, right? Like I just saw today that they are adding in a premium version that's really going to focus on advertising for creators to create their own sort of shows and different things like that, channels, like a channels. Yeah. Okay. And so I just feel like there's so much competition. Everyone is trying to be like LinkedIn just added games. So they're trying to get into
games.
Yeah, you know how the New York Times has Wordle and different things like that? LinkedIn just launched 3 different crossword puzzle games. So
what do
random.
Older business people like to do? Crossword puzzles.
Right.
Great.
So it's
Sudoku or whatever it is. Okay.
So it's just wild how quickly it changes and how we have to have that pulse to be like, all right, pivot, let's move it this way. Or if that's not what we want, how are we going to fix, whatever problems that we have in social?
It's crazy. We already consume so much media and they're just trying, we're falling into it, right? And then we have no other choice. As business owners, we have to get into it.
Yeah.
You can take your stand. I will not do social media. You won't be in business for long.
Exactly. Yeah.
Let's talk about Hustle and Socialize because that's coming up here real quick.
Coming up.
And this is a great event. We are so happy to be a sponsor.
I am excited to have y'all be a sponsor.
You guys do. And we've got some of our team going. We've got clients that are coming. It's just exciting. But tell all of our listeners here, what is Hustle and Socialize? Because that way they don't miss it this year.
Absolutely. Hustle and Socialize is my conference for minority businesswomen who are looking to connect, grow profitable businesses, and create legacy. We really focus on 3 main avenues with any business owner, which are money, marketing, and mindset. So a lot of the resources, the business education, especially here in, San Antonio and Texas, a lot of these women are not really getting exposed to the necessary business education and resources in order to grow and scale their business, especially for Latina entrepreneurs, right? We talked about this last time where Latina entrepreneurs are often the least funded when it comes to capital and investors, and even just the way we are trying to grow and scale. For some business owners, it's very difficult for them to access even a small business loan or have the right paperwork to apply for a grant. And so the conference is really all about the first place that a business owner can get visible, right? They're connecting with other business women. They are learning a little bit more about how to do business in a way that maybe they don't really know, especially when it comes to finances and marketing themselves. Right. And then they really come and they get the confidence that they need to go out and actually market themselves and to get in spaces to where they're in boardrooms and they're asking for money, right? Learning how to pitch, learning how to better budget, and doing all those things. And it originally got started because previous years, I was always the only Latina in business circles and the only young person in the room. And I was just getting really frustrated around not seeing other women who look like me or organizations that are not for me, you know, have these things. And it was like, why, if I'm going to be upset about it, might as well just do something about it. Right. And we've grown so much in the last 6 years. I actually went through a business acquisition 2 years ago. I acquired the company 100%. I bought out my business partner, which we're still best friends. And I'm so grateful, which is awesome. Right. Cause I think we all know.
Oh yeah, we've talked about it. I deal with more best friends no longer being best friends with a business than I do with them keeping it by far.
So, I mean, the 6th annual conference is on the 24th floor of the Frost Tower here in downtown San Antonio. Geekdom is also
a great place to do it.
It's amazing. We're so excited.
Around.
And I think one thing that makes me so proud and excited is for so many of the women that are attending, this is the very first time that they're ever going to step in a space like that before.
That's a good point.
So many of them are first generation, you know, some of them are first generation when it comes to having a business in their family. And for a lot of the women that are coming, to them, this is a dream, right? To be able, and this year we have speakers, not just in San Antonio and all parts of Texas, but for the first time, we actually have people from California coming.
Oh, wow.
We have people from Florida coming, people from Georgia. So we're starting to really branch out nationally and making San Antonio be the place that they think about for potentially starting a second business here.
That's great.
You know, or expanding their locations, bringing satellite businesses here. So I'm just so excited. And I mean, this year, like I said, we're very close to selling out. So we've got.
So if you're hearing this, you know, get out there. Because if you say I'll get to it, it'll be too late.
And we do everything. I mean, it's a mixture of breakout sessions in terms of like the legal side, right? We have breakout sessions on the pitching side and the storytelling side. And it's a mixture of different opportunities for any business owner, right? You could be still having your 9-to-5 job and maybe thinking about entrepreneurship, and you're just like, I need that inspiration to actually do the gun, right?
Going.
Exactly. And a lot of people have come to Hustle and Socialize, and within a 1 week or 2 weeks after the conference have quit their jobs and gotten their LLCs.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty inspired right there to be like, I'm out.
So it's
usually it's like a side hustle. We're in both worlds and then we step onto the ship. But if that's bold. I like that.
Yeah. So it's incredible. And I think it just makes me so excited to see the growth of the company, especially we were a baby company right when COVID happened.
Right.
So we were just 2 years in when COVID came. So we had to move the conference. And then my business partner left to run for Congress. And that's when I bought her out. And so it's just been this wave, right, of just different things that have happened, but to still be here and to grow it is just something so extraordinary.
Well, and the COVID wave, right, which impacted all of us in a big way. What we're seeing now is I guess that was a wave. Now we're seeing people that are riding that. Some people riding that going, hey, I like the ride, I'm out. And so we're seeing a lot of people, exit out of businesses, sell their businesses. Then we see a lot of people going, hey, I see opportunity. Let me get in this wave of growth or buy this company. We're seeing a lot of this ripple back out of COVID, of the growth and those sort of things, which is great.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about your philosophy with regard to marketing. I want to come back to the marketing thing because you can get that feel of it when you see your social media. But what is your philosophy for marketing overall?
My philosophy is based and rooted on unapologetic visibility. And I think for so many women, and I speak for women a lot because I work with a lot of women, right? From all ages, so many women are really terrified about putting themselves out there. And
I'm going to join that class too. I'm terrified of that too. I don't mind doing this, but outside of that, I'm terrified.
And it could be also just stepping in front of the camera.
Sure.
It could be putting themselves in opportunities to where they are in front of people who have money and pitching themselves or networking. And I fully believe that until you are able to get the mindset and the confidence piece down packed, your strategy is not going to matter, because you can have somebody give you all the strategy, like, here's what you got to do to have a great social media.
Right.
But if you're not believing in yourself, if you are actually not taking action and being in front of the camera, or if you don't put yourself out there, none of that is going to work, right? So I really fully believe, and especially for Latinas, because I work with a lot of Latinas, but for Latinas, so many of us were taught as a young girl to cállate, like the more, calladita más bonita, that's the saying. Like, if you are quiet, you're pretty, right? Like, don't ruffle any feathers. Don't do that. And we're getting out of that shell. We're breaking it out. And we're also being visible in spaces that don't really accommodate us.
Right.
And that's why social media, because it is that avenue, that is the first place that you could start. I talk about this a lot, how so many women, they want to speak on more stages. They want to be on more panels. They want to be on workshops, but they're terrified of actually going live.
Right.
So it's like, well, if you want to do that, you have to get comfortable with looking at the camera and hearing how you speak and having energy and getting to a place where you feel comfortable, where no one is in the room, so that when you actually step out on an audience, you are very confident, right?
Well, it's funny because, number one, I actually don't go back and watch these.
No?
I can't. So, for those of you out there like, oh, well, what's he talking about?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's
God.
how I keep my psyche out of it. Like, we've got the great team that puts clips together and stuff. And I see like a clip and I'm like, okay, next one. Great. The other thing is, if like when you're in here, this is just a conversation, which I love talking, having conversations like this. But we do a lot where we have to film when I'm just talking. And for the longest time, I kicked all my staff out of the room so I could do it. I'm like, and I would just mess up. Mess up. And then they know, because I would make certain jokes like, well, okay, here we go. I just can't talk today, or I do a Bugs Bunny, impression or something, or Porky Pig. That's what I thought I sounded like, right?
Yeah.
But now, we're about to get our 50th episode.
Wow.
And do this sort of stuff. It's a little bit easier. It's still not easy, but it's a little bit easier. But you kind of have to go through that.
Right. And that's why the basis is unapologetic visibility on both sides, the offline world and the online world, which is why Hustle and Socialize fits the offline world, because that's the first place that people can come and they're getting in front of potential buyers, potential customers, potential, collaborators, and they are really building that muscle of, okay, I'm going to, pitch myself. We're going to network. We're going to do all the things. And then my coaching, which is my one-on-one coaching or my group coaching program, that's the online arm. So it's like, okay, now we did the first step and we actually came in person. We did the hard thing. We networked, we learned, we got to pitch ourselves, but now let's get into the nitty gritty of the actual strategy component and really focusing on the confidence piece, the visibility aspect, because I think really when it comes down to it, like marketing, there are many facets of it. Social media is just that one arm, but the biggest one too is, where are you being visible? Like where are you networking, right? Who's in the room? What rooms are you a part of? And even like what stages are you getting on? What podcasts, right? Because it all blends to each other to actually raise the impact of your brand and the way that your online presence is being perceived. And that's why I like having the two arms of, okay, Hustle and Socialize is that first offline sector where everyone, like if you've never gone to a conference before, which is, it could be very intimidating. this is a great, brave space. I like to say brave space. Like, yes, it's a safe space, but we have a brave space because you need to have that courageous aspect of yourself to be like, okay, I'm going to walk into a room where there is a Latina millionaire in the room, right? I'm going to go and I'm going to network with her. And now you're in her orbit, right? So now you're like, great opportunities could come from that. But you got to have the online piece as well. And so that's why I really fully believe that you need to have the confidence aspect before you can get to the strategy.
No, it makes sense. I mean, I've gone to a lot of conferences and you leave inspired, ready for action. And then usually you're like, okay, but where do I go? Right. And you really need both of them, for that. Because I mean, the team that went last time, they just enjoyed themselves fully, were inspired themselves again. But I know everybody that does that. But it's great that you have, the other arm of what you do, because then they can take that wave, right, and ride it into action.
Exactly.
For what they're doing.
Exactly.
I've got one more question for you, and it's one of those easy ones, like what I started off with.
Okay.
What do you think is the future of social media that we need to just have in the back of our minds?
I mean, we're seeing it right now, right? With AI. I do feel like we also really need to keep in mind of the legalities around what's real and what's not real, and misinformation, and what does that look like from a brand perspective, especially when it comes to content that is being used.
Sure.
You see a lot of reposting, right? You see a lot of people create content. So I think looking at it from that side, but I also think we're seeing this rise too of these platforms just really, when it comes to the usage of it, like we're seeing these platforms really take a look of how they can monetize more. And what does it look like when policies are in place? And we're seeing it right now with TikTok, right? So, I mean, the future is just it's ever changing. I don't think we'll ever, if marketing experts, like when one thing happens, another thing happens, right? So it's like every time we get to a place where like, oh, I think I understand where the future is going. But I feel what the future is, that is basic fundamental, is the community aspect, right? Yeah. So I really do believe that at the end of the day, we are going to see AI, we are going to see that, but we need to have that connection and the community piece, which is a basic fundamental. And authenticity is still, I know it's a buzzword and I know we talk about it, but
if everything's robots, it's non-authentic. Eventually we're going to be able to figure out which ones
are. So we need to make sure that we are engaging with our audience. We are coming from a place of people to people, especially in our marketing. And so I do feel like, the future is all these different things, but at the core of it, it's connection, it's community, it's realness, it's, just things that people really love so much. Social's meant to be social, so we need to be social with it.
Christina, thank you so much for coming here.
So much.
And for all of our listeners, I mean, don't miss Hustle and Socialize. Woo! We'll have it in the descriptions of all of our platforms. You can find it right now. Click on that. Don't wait, because it's selling out, and you can click and be out of there and miss a real good opportunity. But you can already hear, I mean, just the passion, the mindset. I'm inspired. I'm gonna, go do some social media. I might be bold and do something personal, today, which I just never do. But just thank you for all that you do for the community. Good luck, and have just a wonderful, conference. And thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.